Today we get news that Google settles a lawsuit against them for collecting data in incognito mode. And I have some thoughts about this, and I hope that you do too, but really it's going to boil down to what is incognito mode, why is there not expected privacy from the data miners, what is the purpose of it? These are all fascinating questions to think about. And today we're going to dig into all of this. We're going to look at some things, and I have some surprising opinions. So stay tuned and see if you agree with my general assessment. Welcome back to Switch to Linux, and I hope that you are having a happy new year. If you do not watch the Friday night shows or the weekly streams, then I made an announcement over there that I'm going to cover a lot more of the business type articles throughout the week as they relate to FOSS software and other things relating to privacy and the focus of this channel, which is more about taking personal control in computing and privacy factors. And so today, rather than throwing this article into a weekly news roundup where a smaller percentage of my audience watches the video, we're going to start rolling out more articles like this midweek so that we have a better chance to see what's going on and be able to dig deeper into some of these articles with a little bit more thought process along the way. And with that being said, we are going to dive into the Google Incognito settlement. So this goes back to an article a few years back. A group of people got together and created a class action to sue Google, and they were seeking a $5 billion lawsuit because, why not go after the deep pockets here? And their allegement was that they were using incognito mode on Chrome, and they assumed that this was private so that nobody would be able to see anything that's going on. And in my opinion, this is actually more of a problem on the consumer's end rather than Google's end. But there's some nuance in here, and I can understand. Now, Google has decided that they're going to settle this. Now, it's not going to be for $5 billion. Right now, the terms of the settlement are sealed, and so we don't know exactly what those terms are. But that being said, I think that Google is actually in the right here, but I completely understand why settling is probably in their best interest because it doesn't look like they're in the right. And as long as they work on rebranding and making sure that that incognito mode doesn't demonstrate or even assume, hey, you're going to have privacy, then that really is the principle here. So what we want to do is we want to kind of start by asking, what is incognito mode? Now, I don't have Google Chrome installed. I do have Firefox over here. So here is their version of this, which is called private browsing. And this does give you the summary of what incognito mode has always done. All this mode does is it's effectively utilizing your browser with the most strict cookie policies. So if you go down into the settings on any given browser and you pull up your settings page, under your privacy and security, you have a variety of different settings in here. You have your standard, you have your strict, you have your custom. So this is which ones to block. This is because my main Firefox is set up pretty rigorous. There's not a lot of difference between my Firefox browser and Firefox browser on privacy mode. So this blocks cookies. It blocks tracking content, fingerprinters. The idea here is that the privacy browsing in the incognito mode, they're going to prevent the session you're doing right now from still being there when you boot your browser back on. They're going to prevent you, anybody in your family as it is, to see what you're on. And so incognito mode is common for going to certain websites, where people, I guess, shop for salamis and other things like that. I mean, Pepperidge Farms we're talking about. Pepperidge Farms, yeah. And so with that, though, all it's going to do is it's going to clear your search and browsing history when you're done. Now, Firefox has in here, and all the browsers since this lawsuit was first announced, say it does not make you anonymous. The reason is because the anonymity on the internet has nothing to do with the cookies or things like that as much as it has to do with all of the other factors. So in other words, as you're browsing along and you store a cookie, so let's just say you go to Facebook. You log into Facebook on your web browser. Well, almost all websites now by default keep you logged in. It's horribly insecure, but it allows that website to have a cookie which can track you across the internet. So if you go to your browser and you log into Facebook and then you proceed to dance around the internet, surfing the wild waves, the tsunami of the net, Facebook can actually see all of the things that's going on because it's tracked in the cookie. And then since you're still logged in, it regularly feeds this information back to Facebook. So Facebook builds a better profile of the things that you do. Now, if you use the private browsing or the incognito mode, that cookie is cut off. Now, does this mean Facebook can't track you at all? It still can, but it doesn't track it as well. Okay, so when you put it in there and you're not logged in, your IP address and the browser fingerprint is still effectively the same. So Facebook gets the data back from the IP address and says, this is most likely the data of this user based on the fingerprinting and the IP address, but it may not be the user. So you're going to put it in a separate part of the profile as supposed or alleged, but the point is that Facebook can still track you. Well, the one service that is everywhere is Google Analytics. In fact, when I rebuilt my website a couple years ago, I removed Google Analytics altogether. I'm using a self-hosted analytics platform that is also on my own server. But the problem is if you go to a lot of the pages on my site and you look at the source code, there's still Google Analytics because I'm using Odyssey for the videos. Odyssey embedded videos also includes Google Analytics. Rumble embedded videos also includes Google Analytics. So if I want to have videos on my page, I have Google Analytics. We're talking about a solution to that. We have a couple solutions in mind to fix that. That's kind of coming down the road. But the point being is that Google Analytics is nearly everywhere. Almost every website has Google Analytics. Those that don't just don't have it yet. And so what happens is Google can still track you around like Facebook. It ties it to your IP address. It ties it to your browser fingerprint. And in the new Google Analytics 4, you can dig that stuff down pretty deep. And if you have any form of product you're selling, you can completely de-anonymize even somebody's credit card numbers and address based on the information inside of that Google profile. And this is all stuff that I've actually seen and been able to do with some of my clients' Google Analytics protocols. This is why I don't use it on any of my stuff. I don't want to. I don't want it to feed that. And so the assumption is if you turn on incognito mode, then Google can't track you. The reality is it can track you just fine. And that is what it gets back to the lawsuit. What the lawsuit is alleging here is that going into the detail here, now this was a case, a class action case that was supposed to go into a settlement court for February 24th, 2024. But they came and agreed to a settlement instead, although nobody is specifically commenting. The amount is sealed. So the plaintiffs allege Google's analytics, cookies, and app let Alphabet Unit track their activity even when they set Google Chrome's to incognito mode and other browsers to private browsing mode. Now, the reality is that this, in my opinion, is a consumer issue, not a Google issue. Okay, because as the consumer, it really is your job to make sure that you understand that how these things work. Now, the average person doesn't understand it. So I personally think on a technical level, Google is right, but they have the deep perception of being in the wrong. And so they said, you know what, we're going to settle it to be done with it so we can focus on other things. Now, the thing is that Google in the upcoming versions, I can't remember when they're rolling out, but they're working to block cookies altogether, which is going to do a better job of blocking other sites from tracking you. But can it still track? But can Google still track you? Can Facebook still track you? Anything that stays logged in possibly can, particularly Google. Now, if they're blocking the tracking cookies, staying logged in on Facebook will, in theory, be able to be blocked. But the problem is that on Google Chrome, on Microsoft Edge, they're really pushing you to sign into that browser. And if you're signed into the browser, they can collect data and store it into the profile all they want without the inherent small limitations on cookies. So cookies can only have, I think it's like, is it a kilobyte maybe of data? They're very limited in their data usage. And so cookies have a limited application, although they are still useful, which is why they're all over the internet. But if you are logged into your browser, then you will still be passing information back to Google no matter what you do, whether or not the site has analytics. All of this is information they're trying to do. So as they're working to push cookies out of their browser, that's the real issue, because all the other things that might want to track you won't be able to, but Google and Microsoft still can if you sign into their browsers. So make sure you are not signed into your browser. Now, that might make things a little bit more inconvenient in a few places, but we are all about measuring our privacy for the sake of inconvenience. So over here, what they're doing is they're coming in and they're saying, hey, the plaintiffs are saying that Google is still tracking it. They said this turned Google into an unaccountable trove of information by letting the company learn about their friends and hobbies, favorite foods, shopping habits, and potentially embarrassing things like visiting Pepperidge Farms they seek out online. In August, Rogers rejected Google's bid to dismiss the lawsuit. She said it was an open question whether Google had made legally binding promise or not. And that really boils down. So this is why I agree with Google that this wasn't really their problem. But it was kind of like the computer guys were passing out information and assuming that everybody else understood the language they were using. That being said, the best thing we can do is if you run either a local DNS or if you run a Pi-hole or a host file on your computer. I have videos about doing that. I will link those in the description of this video so you can see what those look like. And that really is the best way to block Facebook, to block Google, to block TikTok, and all of the other ad agencies that want to travel around the internet with you collecting your data. So Google has reached a settlement. They are going to be paying out some large class of people, probably another check for what, $1.50, like the last one was. But hey, there's the case. They said over here the 2020 lawsuit covered millions of Google users since June 1st, 2016, and at least $5,000 in damage per violation of federal wiretapping and California privacy laws. Whether or not it's going to be there, hey, if I could get $5,000 from Google for doing that, I might think about it. But I'm thinking 5 cents might be a more accurate payout is what we're going to see. That's the way these things happen to go. But there is a Google Incognito settlement, and really this doesn't change a lot. What's going to change a lot is as we as internet users block these things on the network level of our devices. That is the best way to make this happen. So with that, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.